Hello, everyone. It's Mary Kurek with Frontrunners Innovate, and I have a familiar face. I have David Ajibade, who no longer is in Africa right now, but living in the United States and working from his Brain and Body Foundation and doing lots of cool things in memory care, I would say, Alzheimer's, dementia, and those sorts of things that we all will deal with if we haven't already at some point in our lives, most likely. Don't want to make it sound like you vacated Africa. David, because I know you're very much still tied there and you have a wonderful television show that you do, and we want to talk about that. But let's get caught up with you proper since the move to the U.S. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing at Brain and Body Foundation, and let's get caught up with what's going on with Alzheimer's and dementia. Okay?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Mary. I appreciate it. So you've always been checking in on me and making sure that I'm doing okay. I really appreciate it. So it's going on 3 years now. 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, was when we came into the States. It was meant to be a two-month trip. What I usually do, I come like twice a year, and to raise funds, also to do research, to buy medications, to meet with my mentors, to do further studies, to attend seminars, and so on, and then go back. And then, of course, everything changed from there. With the Brain and Body Foundation, our focus is on medically fragile children with sickle cell disease, children with brain disorders, and so we do that twice a week, 3 times a week. We run free clinics all over the Federal Capital Territory, which is like Washington, D.C., and my staff and volunteers take care of these kids. We give them free medications, free supplements, and now we're doing research now because we want to change. We want to prove to the government that if they added these certain nutrients to their diet or to whatever else they're giving them for treatment, we can see significant improvement. So we want to do the research so that we can provide the data to the government so the government can enact a policy change. So that's really exciting. We're getting some really good results from that. But in the process, because we not only deal with children, we also deal with adults with brain disorders like strokes and memory loss and dementia. We started getting a lot of appeals and requests for for help, and I didn't realize how big a problem it is in the United States.
Stroke is huge. Yeah.
Strokes,
Stroke is huge.
PTSD you were mentioning, dementia, memory loss, all sorts. So it's basically the same principle that we've applied to the young kids that we just adapted to adults. And because we knew they were safe with kids, we could also address that in adults. And so we have patients around the world, Nigeria, the UK, US, who we consult with, and we try to help. Now, obviously, we're not treating in that sense, but our focus is on answering the question, what makes your brain stronger? And then the other question is, what makes your brain weaker? If we can remove the latter and increase the former by finding those nutrients. It's just like feeding your brain with the nutrients that it needs, with the building blocks that it needs to recover. And once we break it down in that sense, obviously there are some tests here and there that you need to do, but there are some basic things that the brain needs. And what we found out, Mary, is that most people simply aren't giving their brains enough of the right nutrients, the right building blocks, the right nourishment to keep their brains healthy. And once you begin to address that, we begin to see remarkable improvements in brain function.
Wow. Well, along with being a researcher, you have been a physician in Africa, and you are here now. But I remember you telling me a while back that you wanted to move away from medicine into nutraceuticals and getting away from the expensive, stuff that a lot of people can't get their hands on anyway, to more reasonable ways that are more natural ways of treating yourself, and, like you say, trying to enhance the good stuff that you need to have in your body to do what it needs to do. So if you're talking to somebody now, let's say, who is maybe starting into Alzheimer's or dementia, I know that those are similar but not the same. I understand that. What types of telemedicine work, or what types of consulting do you do around that sort of thing?
Well, absolutely. And just to answer your point, we were forced to look at nutraceuticals and nutrients because obviously we couldn't afford our patients couldn't afford. I think the most recent drug is about $56,000.
Wow.
Per year, and then even insurance wasn't willing to cover it. And then there's another one after that, and I don't know how expensive that is, but it's still a lot more than most people in my country can afford if they have the issue. So we were forced to really look at this other thing, the nutraceuticals and the nutrients. And so, like I said, we're already treating people and supporting people. I don't want to use the word treat, because treatment is like, it's a medical legal term, but we are already providing these. So what we do is telemedicine, certain appointments. We do like a Zoom call or phone call, depending on what they have available. And then we go through the problems, and obviously like the way a doctor would. And then I explain to them the situation. We may ask them to do a couple of tests, simple tests, to determine the extent of their brain function. And then we provide them, and then we recommend some certain nutraceuticals. If they're in Nigeria, staff in Nigeria will put them together in a package and then send it to them, and then we just communicate from there, either on WhatsApp or by email, and we show them how to use it, and then they just give me feedback on a weekly basis on how things are moving. Usually, it's easy, make it as easy as possible for them to follow. So it's usually quite straightforward.
Well, that's awesome. So you feel like you're getting good results then from this type of procedure then?
Remarkably. We had a patient in the UK who her husband was so bad. I mean, had to have home care. And then one of the things that really struck out to me was that he would be watching TV, maybe a drama series, and then because of the dementia, he would react to the TV like they were talking to him. I don't know if you've experienced that, but it's the bizarre things about this condition. And he would think that they were addressing him, and he would get violent and be shouting back at the TV. And another thing was that he's from Nigeria, so he instead of speaking the Nigerian language to his wife, he would speak English to his wife. But when the caregiver, the nurse comes in, he would speak the Nigerian language to the caregiver. So it was mixing all these things up. And so when we started working with him, and within a period of less than a week for sure, and she was like, well, now he's sitting down and watching the TV, care closely, and he's not reacting the way he used to, and he's speaking my language to me and English to the caregiver. And he's he's not going to the bathroom in his Pampers anymore. He's actually holding on to it and saying he wants to use the bathroom. I mean, that was huge.
Wow, that is enormous.
It is. It really is. And these are things that most people don't really talk about for fear, out of embarrassment, or just not one of the things they don't talk about. Everybody talks about memory issues, and he's not thinking, he doesn't remember me, but they don't talk about the other, shall we say, unsightly things.
Yeah,
because it's
more physical stuff.
To talk about.
Yeah,
exactly. So it's been an interesting journey, but I'm really encouraged by the fact that the bottom line is that the brain, like the body, has the intelligence and the ability to heal itself only if you provide it with the tools that it needs to do that work.
Well, we've been talking for about 20 minutes before we even came on record. And one of the things that hit me when I was watching you on LinkedIn is the fact that you've gotten really involved in the Alzheimer's space. And I think part of that is because you now kind of are serving with an organization where you're located. Do you want to share a little bit about that and what you've learned and what you're sharing with them?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Alzheimer's Association is a fantastic association. I didn't realize the extent to which they're serving the communities. They're actually the second largest funder of research for Alzheimer's disease after the NIH. I don't know if you knew that, Mary.
Yeah.
But they're really, really, really big, and they are wanting to serve in any way possible. And so they have they try to reach into the community through TV, through churches, through different community groups. And so volunteers like me, I approached them because I saw the great work they were doing, and obviously this is my space. So I volunteered, and already they've gotten me working. I spoke to a church group a couple of weeks ago, and also I spoke on radio to a Black group. So I'm particularly interested too in the Black community, because obviously I'm, if anything, Black.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what we know is that Black people have more than twice the risk of having Alzheimer's disease than white people are. What the white people do, and usually it's more severe, and there's just less support for the Black community. And so I felt that we need to pay more attention to that and find out why. Now, the usual two reasons that are given are, well, Black people have higher levels of hypertension and diabetes, and we now know that those things set you on the track towards getting dementia. But it's not only that. And okay, here's another question: why is it that we have higher rates of diabetes and hypertension? Can something be done? There's things that are missing. Are there nutrients, for instance, that we are not getting enough of as compared with the white people? And so this is what I'm hoping that they will accept, is that we need to go down to the nitty-gritty, the granular detail, so to speak, as to why this is so that we can be better able to communicate these things to the people in the Black community and show them how to apply it to their daily lives within their social, cultural, social, economical context, rather than just speaking to them the same way we speak to white people, because we're not the same. We're different cultures. There are different contexts. Our genetics are different as well. So it's not, race is not just skin deep at all. It goes right down to our biochemistry. And I felt that, and this is what I'm also recommending to them, that listen, I'm willing to help out as long as you're going to use me. I'm willing to help out in shaping this, and maybe you can appeal to the, I'm right here, Johns Hopkins is just a few, not more than 2 kilometers away from where I live right now. And they're big into this research as well. Well, the Alzheimer's Association, in my opinion, should be really working hand in hand with these big
research
organizations, so they can get this done.
I think this is interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
Same thing with women too. Women are twice as likely to get Alzheimer's disease as men. You got to find out how to address that, and let women know. Again, we were talking about veterans. Soldiers, veterans are twice as likely to get dementia as the rest of the population, for different reasons as well.
All that stress. That's what we do with the stress.
Yeah, exactly. All that stress. All that stress, the loss of that wonderful bond you felt when you were in the military, because I was in the military myself, that bond, and then all of a sudden you lose that bond.
That's right.
You're not meeting with your buddies anymore. You're not fighting the enemy anymore together. You're not getting injured together. You miss all that. And that's one of I have a list called the Dirty Dozen, the top 12 risk factors for dementia. And one of them is isolation. By the way, they all start with the letter I. So I thought that was pretty cool. So one of them is isolation, or just lack of adequate social interaction. That is crucial. That is absolutely crucial for proper good mental health, to have quality relationships. And we know in the military, we lose that once we get out of the military, because that special bond is lost. So I mean, there's so much to be learned and to be talked about, that I feel that we really should attack this from all angles, in my opinion.
I think you're right. What I was going to say is, and you may know this already since you're in the medical profession, but Johns Hopkins has a sort of nonprofit research arm called JPIGO, is what I understand. And and it's in like 142 different locations around the world, and lots of different countries. And what they do a lot of times is collaborate and partner with other organizations and corporations that are trying to get into clinical trials. And so I know that, for instance, there's one in Kenya. There's a JPIGO organization in Kenya. And so myself and a client last year was looking at having them do a research project for them. So the fact that they are that ingrained in a research would be a really good thing for you and that organization to connect with. I have a question for you from the standpoint, particularly of Black youth. What can the young people do if you know that statistic is hanging over your head? If you have uncle, aunt, mother, father, or whatever that you feel like is heading into that, or they've already been diagnosed. And even if they haven't, but that statistic is there. What can young people do to start kind of not preparing themselves for what's going to happen, but what can they do to maybe prevent something like that happening? Does it come down to that research piece that you're talking about, or is there something now that they might be able to start doing or not doing if they're doing the wrong thing?
Well, we can see a lot of things that they should stop doing.
Yeah. Well, true. Yeah, that's true. I've raised a couple of boys. Yeah. I can, I can say that. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, other than the obvious risk behavior tendencies that especially boys tend to engage in, and you mentioned the Black community, so I'm going to zero in on the Black community. What we've found out, and I mean this is not just out there. You got to kind of piece it together. And I always think in terms of nutrients first, right? So there are about 7 nutrients that most people are deficient in, that the brain must have to function properly. And if it does not get them, it's gonna manage. I mean, the younger you are, the easier it's able to manage, to get around it, to find ways around it to make it work. But over time, especially when you start getting illnesses or get other sicknesses, I don't know usual sicknesses, but hypertension sets in, diabetes sets in, other conditions set in. It gets harder and harder for the brain to handle this deficiency. And what we know is that Blacks have this deficiency even greater. So here are the 7. The most, in my opinion, the most important is vitamin D3. Everybody has heard about it, especially with COVID-19. Vitamin D3, some are saying, is the most important vitamin for the brain. It's especially important for the memory centers which is called the hippocampus. Especially important. We just don't have enough vitamin D compared with the whites, and obviously there are genetic factors to that. The B vitamins, especially B12, B1, and B6, I think B9 as well. Vitamin C, super important. We're not getting enough of that. And then we've got the minerals now: zinc, magnesium, and potassium. Potassium came as a surprise to me because I was like, everybody gets potassium. But now they're finding out that people who are salt sensitive, and we blacks are salt sensitive, we tend to get hypertension easily. When in the presence of elevated levels of salt. They find out that salt sensitivity is really a result of potassium deficiency. So if you take enough potassium, that salt sensitivity will reduce. Yes, wow. And it also helps with sugar control as well. So those, I think I've mentioned, C, D.
D3, B12, 1, 6, and 9. C, zinc, magnesium, potassium. So I wrote it all down.
Good on you. Good job. Yeah, so that's 6. The final one is fiber. Soluble fiber, most especially. I prefer psyllium husk. I take that every single day. Psyllium, I get mine from Whole Foods. It's like a flakes powder. People just think about it as, it just helps with your digestion. Okay, Metamucil is probably the most common one that people buy. Just think about it in terms of digestion or helping you get regular. But fiber is so much more important than that. And one of the things that it does is that your body cannot digest it. So it's the good bugs or the probiotics in your gut that digest fiber. When they digest fiber, they eat it for themselves, but they produce waste products or metabolites that contain ketone bodies. You've heard about the ketogenic diet, right? So the fiber, out of the fiber, these probiotics, these bugs creates the ketone bodies, which are extremely important for brain function. They help with inflammation. They help reduce inflammation in the brain. They help in the signaling in the brain. They help in the communication between brain cells. So fiber, even though we don't eat it directly, but the byproducts of the digestion by the bugs is what produces an extremely important chemical that the brain needs.
So you're saying maybe we don't get enough in the food. So in your case, like you're taking a supplement to make sure you get enough.
I do. It comes in like in the powder flakes thing, like Metamucil. I don't like that one because it has so many other things added to it, sweeteners and all those things.
Yeah.
I just like the pure psyllium husk fiber, and that works well for me. I mean, it may not work for somebody else, but I think you need to search for what works for you. And rather than taking the tablets, take the powder, because the powder actually has I think gives you more bang for your buck, in my opinion.
So interesting. I've learned something. So from the standpoint of, back to the question about Black youth, and I have a reason for going in that direction. I will tell you about that later. That's a business conversation. Right. But what would you recommend to populations of Black youth seeing this? And like I say, knowing that statistic is overhead, these things are easily accessible at any drugstore. You can get all of this pretty much. In fact, some of these things I think come in like, can you get the zinc and the magnesium and the maybe in even one like vitamin? I mean,
yeah, you can get a few of them. You can get combos of a few of them. I'm actually working on seeing how we can combine them in a way that works all together.
Brain health packet. Brain health packet. That's what I think.
Yeah, the basic brain health package.
Yeah, I think that'd be awesome. And I think that, if they knew this, then what then needs to happen is that education piece. The only thing that's missing is standing between them and taking these things. And how much would you say all of this would even cost if you went to the drugstore to get? Minus, the fiber, I think they're probably going to figure they get enough of that in their diet. But my guess is youth do not. That's not what they're focused on. Carbs is probably what they're getting.
Kids don't take veggies unless they have a gun to their head.
I know. Literally had to do that with
and
my
ketchup
son.
And fries don't count as veggies in my opinion.
I know. I had to bribe my son to eat, I remember him saying one time when he was like 6 years old, I had, green beans on the plate, and he said, "Can I have one bite?" I said, "Yeah." Can I have half a bite? Yes. I love this. Can I lick it? And so it was like bribing, you're like, oh, just to get him to, he still doesn't like vegetables. But so you're right. I don't think anybody's getting, especially youth, are getting their, full take on it. But, if you take all of those things into one packet, so to speak, if you're taking a day, and I know it's an investment in your health and you need to think of that way. I don't think youth thinks of it that way, but if they think of it in terms of sports performance, alleviating some kind of a long-term memory disease, if they see that they've got a family member that's going through it, and maybe some other health benefits that you're going to get from it, then hopefully they would think. What do you think? Maybe is that like a $30 or $40 commitment a month or something like that?
Yeah, it's. If you're talking about all seven, you're talking about $50. But if I were to bring it down to one, I would say the vitamin D. And I went to Sam's Club the other day. It's like $7 for like 400 capsules. I mean, that can last you the entire year.
Yeah.
So it's becoming cheaper and cheaper. So if they
That's
can't
good.
spend the whole thing for $40 to $50 for the whole thing,
then take the most important one. Okay, that's cool.
That's what I say. Yeah.
From the standpoint of moving forward with what you're doing with the dementia work and the memory care work and what you're doing with Brain and Body Foundation, what's happening from here to the rest of the year? What's the new project or the goal of where you're going with this?
Well, sure. Thanks for that question. So we're in the middle of research in Nigeria now. We're about we've gone 3 months into it. I just came from a meeting. That's how I joined before this one. And hopefully by June, July, we should have something concrete to take to the government. And hopefully we'll save a few million lives and we can build upon that. Then the brain Alzheimer's disease, I really want to see how far we can go with the Black community and with people in general. I think there's a lot of information that needs to be shared. I want to kind of like really do some tours, maybe travel, speak in different settings, educate, provide, create learning materials, handouts, slide decks, videos. And there's so much to be done. I mean, again, it's the granular details. I just keep saying that. I keep looking at what is out there, and a lot of things are assumed, especially from the medical doctors. You've got all these really smart neurologists out there who are into research, and they are far removed from the average Joe on the street. So they don't know how the information they're putting out is being received. But because I kind of like dance that line between
gap, yeah,
I can see that, okay, this is not going to reach this person. And so I guess it's a gift there. They can see how you can break it down in bite-sized chunks and to make it fit within the context, the socio-economic, social-cultural context of the different kinds of people, so that they can actually be empowered to apply to their specific lives. And that's really where the key is. When people are being proactive about their own health and they know exactly what to do, they know how what they are doing or not doing is taking them further or away from the dementia. Because everything we're doing can take us in that direction, anything we do. And there are things that we can do to avoid those things. Sorry about that a lot.
That's right. Yeah.
So education is really
I think it is. I think, I think about the 100-year-old grandma that I was telling you about, that every single day her son, who was probably in his 60s or 70s at that point in time, would call her in the morning with a crossword puzzle. And she was completely blind. So he just had to tell it to her. And by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, he would call her back and she'd have it figured out. He'd take her all day and have it figured out. He did that for years. And the day that she passed away, I was with her around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And that evening around midnight, I got the call that she had died in her sleep, which is what we all hope for whenever that time comes. But she asked me how her hair was. She asked me for some bite of pimento cheese sandwich. She did a crossword puzzle with a friend that was sitting there. So she had a good last day of her life. But the funny thing is, she had her mind about her all the way through all that, and completely blind. When I would go visit her and she'd say, I need this, this, and this. You bring me this, this, and this, and this, or whatever next time you come. And she'd laugh at me for having to write it down. You're having to write that down. You can't remember that. No, I can't remember. It's like, I'm not like you. But there's something to amazing. That stimulation piece too. Like you mentioned, the loneliness and not having that social isolation piece is big. We were talking about me being in aging services for a number of years, and that is something that we dealt with for a long time, and actually is one of the biggest issues on our plate when I go tomorrow to the Governor's Advisory Council on Aging. It's not only loneliness, but it's the kinless seniors is what we're calling it. The people who do not have anybody to look after them, who've aged to a point that actually their children have passed away or aren't involved in their life anymore. And they're just on their own. And so they're aging into that, maybe Alzheimer's or dementia or whatever. What do we do? And, it's a really bad problem, apparently very pervasive, and I didn't realize how much so, but it's there. Right. So we got a lot of work for us to do, David. We got a lot of education work to do. So I'm going to talk to you after this, but I want to give you the last words. What would you like to share with everybody? Well, who do you need to meet to help you move yourself forward in what you're doing, the Brain and Body Foundation?
Yeah, that's a great question. I definitely want to do more and more of the telemedicine that you were asking about. What are the other things I want to do? Yeah. I want to do consultations, and obviously, like I said, I'm not licensed in the U.S., so I can certainly give coaching advice and suggestions to say, okay, we might need to do this and this and that. So, I mean, people just understanding what they're doing and not doing can be of huge benefit towards to improve their brain health. So I would love to do more and more of that. So lots of people I've seen have either they are caregivers or they are dealing with even just memory loss.
Caregivers cannot have too much support. You hit it right on the head. Yeah.
So there's a lot that can be done. And what I've noticed too is that caregivers go through a lot of stress. I think the numbers are 42% die before the person that they're caring for dies. So that's a lot of stress. And so we can address that as well. There are nutraceuticals that help to improve your hormonal profile and your brain health, so that you're strong and you know how to handle these stressors a lot more effectively. So there's a lot that can be done. And like I said, memory, even if it's just memory you're dealing with, your memory can improve. And because of COVID-19, we are seeing a lot of people coming down with memory issues and dementia as a result of COVID-19. So there's a lot that can be done, and I'm willing to work with people in that regard.
Fantastic. Wow, I see a lot going on in your future for the next little while. So you're going to be busy, Phil.
Don't fail it, Mary. Let's work on it.
You're awesome. I just love you. So
too.
I'm going to let you stay there and say goodbye to everybody else. If you're watching this on YouTube, go to www.frontrunnersinnovate.com, where if you are used to going there, you know that you're going to find this interview, and Dave will share maybe some resource links and some other information. I know he's been big on camera, so maybe he'll share some YouTubes, maybe a favorite YouTube on the subject of memory loss or dementia, caregiving, any of that you'd like to share. So we'll get to know him a little better, and also his LinkedIn profile, so that you have an opportunity to connect up if you'd like to. So thank you again, David, and bye, everybody.